Hello, I'm your host, Jean-Paul Baran, President of Focus on the Family Canada. Welcome to the Thriving Family, a Focus on the Family Canada podcast. The Thriving Family podcast is made possible by generous donors who support our ministry. In this season of the podcast, we're talking about communication and conflict, which is one of the most common topics people come to us about. Picture this. You and a friend are hanging out, talking like you always do. Suddenly, your friend is divulging serious stuff about their marriage. So what should you say and what should you not say if you want to help your friend? Today's episode, How to Respond When a Friend Reveals Tension in Their Marriage, can help guide us through this relational tightrope. Just a note, referrals to websites not produced by Focus on the Family Canada do not necessarily constitute blanket endorsements of the site's content. Let's begin.
It usually begins with a simple admission, but that admission changes everything. 1 minute you're exchanging small talk with a friend over coffee. Then, out of the blue, your friend blurts out, "John and I had a horrible fight last night." Suddenly, it's no longer just idle chit-chat. Your friend's divulging serious stuff about their marriage. They may be reaching for a tissue or fuming in frustration. And you? How are you feeling at this point? If you're like most people, you're at least a little uncomfortable by now, and not just because you're upset over your friend's distress or feeling awkward about being privy to very personal details. For most of us, if we're wise, there's something more. We also feel a weighty sense of caution. It's not as if our friend is simply struggling with a mouthy teenager or a difficult boss. Conflict between a married couple is unique because it wounds something God deems sacred. The intimate, covenant relationship the couple entered into with God Himself as witness and third partner. We're the outsider here, and we certainly don't want to make a misstep that wounds the marriage even more. So, what should we say, and what should we not say if we want to help our friend? Here are some guidelines to help. Number 1, don't rush to offer advice. In a U.S. survey of relationship advice shared between friends, Bill Doherty, professor of family social science at University of Minnesota, found that many people mess up when friends turn to them for help. High numbers of confiders reported their friends' responses were unhelpful, hurtful, or even harmful to their marriage. Concerned about his findings, Doherty and daughter Elizabeth Doherty Thomas established Marital First Responders, a program that helps people avoid common blunders and offer truly constructive help to friends, families, and colleagues having marital troubles. And the number one mistake confidants make? It seems we're much too quick to dispense Dear Abby advice. In Doherty's words, the most common mistake people make is early advice, premature advice, or specific advice. When a friend confides in us, we can feel pressure to offer wise counsel, to prove our friends' trust in us was not misplaced. But often, that's not what our friend is after. In fact, our friend may very well resent advice that wasn't asked for, or the presumption that we immediately have the solution for a painful, complex issue. Very often, someone troubled by conflict with their spouse just wants to be comforted and encouraged by a neutral third party who will listen to them and pray for them. We can serve our friend well when we remember we're not a trained counselor and focus instead on doing what friends do best. Number 2, do evaluate risk and appropriateness. As a good friend and confidant, our most pressing responsibility is to triage the situation. That means listening carefully for clues that suggest either they, their spouse, or their marriage might be in immediate danger. In his training sessions, Doherty astutely teaches marital first responders to be alert for signs of the AAA threats: abuse, including physical, emotional, or sexual; affairs, including emotional affairs; or addictions. It's also important to watch for the possibility of divorce or thoughts of suicide. If you suspect any of these threats, don't try to help your friend alone. Your friend urgently needs professional help. Remember, too, that understanding what your friend is thinking is just as important as following the events they're recounting. Your friend may be in denial, confused, or not fully comprehending the seriousness of their situation. Friends help friends find the help they need. And if necessary, friends gently convince friends of their need. So don't be thrown off guard when your friend downplays their situation with comments like, "If I'd had the kids ready on time, like I'm supposed to, he wouldn't have been so mad." I really value her friendship. She helps me understand where my wife's coming from. I know I overreacted a bit. I just need wine to relax. That's all. Sometimes the most loving thing we can do for a friend is to put the brakes on what they're sharing about their husband or wife. And who hasn't, at one point or another, slipped up and shared a little too indiscriminately about their spouse? In their book, Yes, Your Marriage Can Be Saved, Joe and Michelle Williams warn that highly personal information about a spouse should not be divulged to friends without first obtaining the spouse's permission. In particular, they warn against sharing about sexual problems, private struggles your spouse has told you in confidence, or that only the two of you know about, except for abuse or other illegal activities, of course, childhood trauma or abuse that your spouse has not shared publicly, past sins that your spouse has confessed and repented of, your spouse's fears and vulnerable areas, such as fear of rejection, fear of failure, or secret thoughts. Anything your spouse has shared in detail during a counseling session. Negative comments about someone else, especially another family member, that your spouse may have told you in private. It's a good habit to ask yourself right up front, does my friend legitimately need to talk through this frustration? Or will I help their marriage even more by halting them from violating their spouse's trust? Number 3, don't take sides. Counselors are trained to remain objective when hearing complaints from one spouse against the other. But for a sympathetic friend without the benefit of similar training, staying neutral in the face of our friends' or close relatives' distress can be surprisingly difficult. All the same, remaining objective is crucial. Our role as a concerned friend is to support our friend by supporting their marriage. It's not our role to figure out who is right and who is wrong. We're only hearing one side of the story, and even then, we're only hearing what our friend is choosing to reveal. Wendy Kitlitz, Focus on the Family Canada's Senior Vice President of Care and Counseling, warns of the potential dangers of sympathy in a situation like this. She says, in trying to show our friend sympathy, we can easily slide into making negative comments about their spouse and to start taking sides. We might say things like, "How could he say that? What a jerk." Instead of being helpful, we're adding fuel to our friends' negative feelings about their spouse, and we can do a lot of damage. Within families, the instinctive urge to counsel and protect a wounded daughter, son, sister, or brother by siding against the in-law is especially strong. Leaving one spouse feeling alienated and maligned, however, just throws one more tricky hurdle in a couple's path to reconciliation. Remember, too, that even the supported spouse will very likely feel insulted by negative attitudes toward their partner. This comment from a friend is telling. It's been years since my divorce, but my mom is still bad-talking my ex. And it still hurts, because on some level, she's criticizing my choice of the person I married and the father of my children. When Jesus said, "What God has joined together, let no one separate," he made no exemptions for close family. Number 4, do offer empathy. Kitlitz explains why empathy is a powerful way to help a friend without diminishing their marriage. When we rehearse grievances about our spouse with another person, it often makes those grievances grow in our mind. As she says, a good friend doesn't inflame those grievances, but calms the situation down. And a good way to do that is by showing empathy. To show constructive empathy, focus the discussion on your hurting friend's feelings, not on their spouse or their spouse's offense. You'll know you're headed in the right direction if you use the words I and you a lot. You can say things like, "I'm sorry you have to go through something so painful. I'm guessing you're really confused right now. It sounds like you're extremely hurt and disappointed. I would be too." Doherty recommends you listen for softer feelings hidden under intense feelings like anger. As he explains, almost always underneath those hard feelings are the softer feelings, like I feel sad, I feel hurt, I feel insecure. People often lead with their hard, protective feelings, but the softer, more vulnerable feelings are often a pathway towards understanding and healing. When hurts have been acknowledged and validated, calmer feelings usually follow. And with calmer feelings comes greater clarity, often including the realization that both spouses contributed to the problem. Lastly, perhaps offer perspective. Often, a good friend and confidant who knows the couple well can speak life and hope into the situation by offering a more balanced perspective. In contrast to giving advice, offering perspective is not directive or pushy. It's a much more sensitive approach that waits to ensure the hurting friend feels heard and understood before gently suggesting alternative and more positive ways of looking at the situation. In contrast to giving advice, offering perspective is not directive or pushy. It's a much more sensitive approach that waits to ensure the hurting friend feels heard and understood before gently suggesting alternative and more positive ways of looking at the situation. Here are some examples of how you might halt a friend's runaway train of negative thoughts. If they're focusing on their spouse's motives or character, try one of the following statements. I'm not certain he intentionally set out to hurt you by doing that. What do you think? John's a pretty complex guy. Can you imagine hidden stresses and fears that might have prompted him to say that? I hear you when you say John doesn't handle money well. You would know much more about that than I. But there are other things about John you can be proud of. I've always admired how much time he devotes to you and the kids. He's a real family man. If your friend doesn't realize that these issues actually are common to many couples and usually temporary, try these perspectives. I've heard a lot of other couples say the same thing. Having little kids leaves little time or energy for a great sex life, but it does get better. I think middle age crisis really is legit. I know several couples who hit a real rough patch, but the feelings of dissatisfaction do settle down again. And many people say the second half of life is the most satisfying. The next time you find yourself sitting across the table from a distraught friend, you may feel you have little to offer other than empathy. But don't underestimate the value, to your friend, of feeling heard and understood, and of knowing that they have a trusted friend who cares about them and who also cares about their marriage.
We know this was a heavy episode, but I hope you feel encouraged and equipped with the practical advice and that you gained some clarity on how to set healthy boundaries in a friendship. In the show notes, you'll find a link to our PDF booklet called Navigating Conflict in Marriage, which includes this information and more advice for couples. If you wish to talk about this further, or if it brought up something that you would like to talk through, you can have a free one-time consultation with one of our registered counselors at Focus on the Family Canada over the phone. Give us a call at 1-800-661-9800 to request a consult. It's our gift to you. Thanks for listening to today's episode of The Thriving Family, a podcast from Focus on the Family Canada. If you like this episode, please leave us a review wherever you listen to podcasts, and be sure to subscribe. If you feel led, you can make a donation at focusonthefamilycanada.ca/podcast giving. This program is available ad-free because of the generosity of our donors. Most importantly, please remember that we are here for you and your family.